Hello, hello. This is the United States. Come in, Australia. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
I hear that you have an idea that you are hoping to get in front of the WoW developers team.
Ah, yeah.
And that you don't want to make an in-person presentation?
That's my anxiety. I hate getting up in front of like a whole assembly. I was like, no, I'm good, thank you.
I mean, you could practice, right?
Takes a lot of rehearsal, I imagine.
Well, we can certainly do it here on the podcast and spiff it up for production. Not going to lie, though, this raw audio does not sound great.
Thank God for editing.
Yeah, well, when we're done, pack that magnetic tape up safely and get it on board the next steamship set to sail from Western Australia to northeastern United States.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, let's go. Welcome to How to Use Solo, a solo queue bonus episode where I interview people from across the Warcraft community. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Gagne. Welcome to Solo Q episode 18, the first episode of 2025. And I suppose the first episode of what I am calling season 2. It is great to have you here. While that shipment of audio tapes makes its precarious journey to Maine by steamship, let me tell you a little bit about the show. My name is Dave. This is my podcast about playing World of Warcraft as a solo player. The topics are not just for solo players. I like to hit a variety of topics all around the game and activities you can enjoy when you're not grouped up for action. So, hey, thanks for downloading the episode and checking it out. In the final episode of 2024, the previous episode, I talked about my goal of 2 episodes per month in the new year, and I am aware that it is past the midpoint of the month of January, but the goal remains. Still to come this month will be a regular episode filled with news and play updates and a couple other special topics, of course, a raid of the month. But today will be the first of those other episodes that I have not yet come up with a catchy name for. Side quest shows, maintenance episodes, nothing has really caught my fancy yet. Anyway, this is the first of those hopefully monthly episodes. Offhand episodes? Off-spec? Alt runs? Like, I'm trying to think of other names. Maybe they don't need names. I need something to call them. I can't even just to myself, I'm not even sure what to call them. So anyway, if you have ideas, tell me what you like. Maybe that will help. Maybe you've got a name for me that will do. So the original plan for this episode was to cover a few different topics that I had on my mind, a couple things that have kind of come across my eyeballs and my ears. But a little change of plan, and I still hope to get to those topics, so I'm not going to give them away just yet. But a wrench kind of showed up, a wrench in that plan. A few weeks ago, I traded messages on Blue Sky with an account called the Snek of Vol'dun after I started following him. I liked his account because he was all in on making the Sethrak a playable race. He messaged me to thank me for the follow and said some really nice things about the podcast. I thanked him because, that's super nice of him. And almost as a joke, I threw out the idea that if he ever wanted to come on the show, and talk about the Sethrak and make a case to all of you for the Sethrak as a playable race, hey, why not? And I did. I kind of said it as a joke, but I did actually say it with the hope that he would at least consider it. Well, that idea caught on quickly with both of us, and in the course of a few minutes, I had proposed an interview. He said he would sit down and make some notes. We planned on like 15 to 20 minutes or so I was thinking, all right, this will be a segment in the show, one part of it, and we'll do some other stuff as well. But I did tell him and hope to myself, like maybe this would expand to a full interview, a full how do you solo interview. And the next thing I knew, he had joined the solo crew as a Patreon supporter. Now, I promise you this is not a pay-to-play podcast. You do not have to be paying money to get onto the show. Our interview was already in place when that little support message came through. But also, my sneaking hope and suspicion also came through. My conversation with the Snek of Vol'dun lasted nearly 2 hours when we got on about a week ago. And we wandered into a number of different topics, but it does begin and end with his passion pushing for WoW devs to add the Sethrak as a playable race. You might remember the Sethrak are a snake-like humanoid race living in the Vol'dun zone from the Battle for Azeroth expansion. What grabbed my attention was his passion for this idea. That passion includes a handful of YouTube videos that explain the Sethrak and that make this case for them as a playable race. But before you get running off to YouTube, check out my conversation with him. I will say that the internet does make recording an interview across the globe a heck of a lot easier. We are more than 11,000 miles, or I think about 18,600 kilometers apart, so we are very far away. The internet makes this easier, but I will say there are a few places where the audio slips a little bit, and for that, I apologize. When we got online, we started chatting and we hit record, and we sort of just slipped into the interview without a lot of fanfare. So let me introduce him now, and then I will cue up that conversation. The Snek of Vol'dun is an account name for my newest and really my only friend from Australia. In a quirk of Australian English that I had to kind of do some research on, snake is sometimes spelled S-N-E-K, kind of as a casual, shortening of the word snake. I should have asked the Snek of Vol'dun about that, but we didn't get to that. But if you're looking him up, S-N-E-K, the Snek of Vol'dun. So, hey, without further ado, let me get to my How Do You Solo interview with the Snek of Vol'dun.
Let's get down to business.
The way that I met you is we were interacting and talking about your Blue Sky profile, where it's talking about the Sethrak, and you're a huge proponent of the Snek. Oh my God! See, this is why we don't do it live.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't practice saying Sethrak over and over, which I probably should have. Yeah.
Oh, easy. If you just want to make it easy, just call them snakes, you know.
But they're people too, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
And isn't that the point? Like you're pushing for these as playable races. Like what do you love about them? Why are you a Sethrak fan?
So to begin with, when I heard about the Sethrak, I was quite interested because they were. At first, they had like a very interesting design about them, and before I became an actual fan of them, I joined one of their like Discords, and I was reading more about them. And this was during like Battle for Azeroth. I was kind of unsubscribed at the time, like coming on and off. But there was this whole talk of like allied races, and the whole discussion of like, oh, you know, like as the expansion goes on, we'll add more allied races that will become playable, like what players want. And the Sethrak was actually one of the big ones. And I got curious, and I got back into the game, played a bit, and yeah, I got hooked on to them purely due to like their design, their architecture, and like their story is pretty interesting. Like the way they've been written is it kind of dates back to very ancient lore, and just the idea of the potential they could have even today, that got me really excited. You know, and there's a lot of races in WoW that obviously haven't been playable, like ogres. That's been like a big thing that people want to play with. What else was there? Like high elves. I mean, they technically became playable a little bit later through like the void elves customizations. Not actual high elves, but close enough. Things like Jinyu, the Hosen. A lot of these races have the potential, and that's what players want. And as for Sethrak, mainly, it just comes down to like they have a very unique design, and I think Blizzard might have struck gold if they made them playable, which, you know, still a possibility.
Right.
But it boils down to basically the reason people like them is their animations is pretty interesting, because their animations is entirely custom. It's not like they use, you know how sometimes you see they use like an existing skeleton and remake it into something else? Sethrak are a entirely new custom model, so they have like entirely new rig.
Yep.
There have been like rumors floating around, because like, you know, data miners, they like to get in there and take a look at everything.
Sure.
One thing that caught their interest was the Sethrak death animation. It's very closely resembling the female Worgen animation. And so what they think is like they use little bits of like animation rigs from different races to put a race together, which is pretty interesting from a design standpoint.
Yeah. Why I like what you're saying about the unique model and how it really is. It doesn't feel like, oh, we hung this skin on top of a troll frame or a night elf frame. Why do you think Sethrak before some of those others like Naga? Do you think it's possible we'd see Sethrak before one of those others that you listed, the Jinyu or others?
So with, like, for example, the Naga, they were obviously originally an idea for a playable race, but the problem was obviously Naga do not have feet. They have no legs, which is a big factor into a playable race.
Sure.
Where, example, like the Sethrak, they have pretty much everything they need. Like, you know, they've got the proper body structure, and the only thing Blizzard would really need to possibly, like, there's a big discussion ages ago about like helmets. I'm pretty sure you've seen it yourself. Helmets on certain races like Tauren, Worgen, they don't really look that great. But as a case with, say, like the you've seen the Necronomes, like they don't have, I don't think they, so they don't have options for boots, legs, or gloves. And what they could do, like the Sethrak, is just they just can't wear helmets. Right. But they can wear like everything else. I reckon that could possibly work. I don't think people would mind if they couldn't wear helmets. At the end of the day, helmets is I don't think it would really fit on them.
Right. Would they just be automatically hidden? Or, I mean, they're going to need the gear slot for gearing and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't show.
I'd say pretty much hidden, because it's like the Drakthir. Their dragon form is fully just customizable, whereas all the armor is just there, but it's all visible on like a visage form. So, but obviously Sethrak don't have a visage to work with, but I'd say in case the helmet, it's either what they could do is they could make like a customization option for like the head area, so you can have like little jewelry hanging around the head just to compensate for the lack of actual helmet wearing.
Yeah, because they've done that a lot with especially with the allied races, adding, you know, I know that some of the original races you've got, if you go to the barber shop, you've got one, maybe two little tabs of options, and then in a bunch of those allied races, you're onto at least 3 tabs. I don't remember if there are more, but even in the tab, so many different things to customize, different jewelry, different color jewelry, different places where the jewelry shows up. Like, and never mind the Drakthir. I've forgotten how many options are on the Drakthir. Frankly,
I'm pretty sure Drakthir have like horn options. You got snout options. You've got like spike options.
Yeah.
You got all these like different armor pieces you can put on them. Very, very fully customizable. Sorry.
I remember hating making the Drakthir because of that, because I'm so indecisive. I could be in the character screen for 3 days. Well, why would I choose this horn over that horn? I don't have a good
that
reason.
Was me when I was making my Drakthir.
So I think it would be interesting, and especially now where the barbershop is free, you could go, I mean, obviously it's not pulling up the transmog vendor on your mount, but you could still go to the barbershop and essentially customize and recustomize relatively easily. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious, you know, you live in Australia, and we mentioned, you know, before we started recording that, well, there are snakes in Australia. Is there a connection? Do you see snakes in your life, and do you like snakes?
Well, I don't go out of my way to actually see it. You go visit a snake, given we've got quite a nasty ones out here. There was I don't know the name of it, but there was a blind snake that got into the house recently. It was just a baby, all that. He was just, wasn't sure where he was, we got him out. But I just think it's quite a coincidence that there was a snake in the house yesterday before we started.
Oh my goodness.
Stars are it's all connected.
And are these snakes that are going to kill you? Like, do they have the capacity for that?
Depends on the snakes. Like,
yeah.
I don't really keep up like the snake species around us, but I know there's a couple that you just like, if you get bit, yeah, you probably just go to the hospital, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for spiders here. We got redbacks. Their bites are pretty deadly.
Okay.
We've got pretty passive ones here. Like the one I can think of is it's called a huntsman.
Okay. That sounds passive.
They can grow to be pretty big. They look terrifying, but generally, if you don't bother them, they won't bother you.
Okay.
That's pretty much sums up Australian wildlife.
Does it really matter? Does it really matter if there are passive snakes and passive spiders? If there are also not so passive, like, do you need to ask, hey, are you one of the good ones?
I just asked them, hey, are you chill? Cool. I don't think the snake would really care.
Are we good? Are we good?
Are we good, man? Don't bite me, please.
Yeah. Did you just like make a point to avoid all snakes and spiders no matter what, so you don't have to ask those questions?
I mean, generally, if I come across a snake when I'm just out and about, I'm just avoid him, just keep my distance, you know. That's pretty much just with any animal, like, don't bother them, they won't bother you. If anything, they're more afraid of you than you're afraid of them.
That works until it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have this chance to take what is a legitimate fear in your world and turn it into a commandable, playable race in game. I like that. So that makes me wonder, with the new, I don't remember what the crustacean mode or whatever. If you hate spiders, can you turn it into turn the enemies in the War Within into crabs. Is that something you are doing?
So actually, no, I'm not that fearful of spiders, so I don't have the crustacean thing on. I did turn it on once just to have a little giggle, just to see what it looked like, and just see all the Nerubians get turned into crabs. So it was a little bit funny to look at, but generally spiders don't creep me out as much. It's like, it's not their fault. They look terrifying. I can't blame
them. Getting back to the Sethrak, I mean, we have a lot of story going on right now. I think there are opportunities. Do you see a role for the Sethrak in the coming battles with Xal'atath? Do you see an opening for Blizzard to do this?
Absolutely. So, apologies if I go on a bit of a tangent here, but
please do.
So, when the War Within was announced and the whole deal with Xal'atath and the whole like underground aspect of the expansion, that got my brain thinking like, ooh, this would be a good opportunity for the Sethrak to come in, because a long time ago, the Sethrak were pretty united people. They had a good time. They had their lower, I'm sorry if I butcher her name, Sethras. That's basically their patron deity, and it was called the Troll and AQ War. The minions of the old gods basically rolled up on the trolls and started fighting with them. And with the Sethrak's lore that was written for them, they were more or less included into that war, just not as mentioned as much apparently. But they had to deal with one big fella. His name was Mithrax, and he basically rolled up on Vol'dun. This was when it was a jungle, right?
Yep.
And he was like, this is easy, make my job. I have a pretty simple job, just break this one thing, go on my merry way. Unfortunately, he was not counting on Sethras appearing, so they got into a bit of a scuffle, and that ultimately resulted in her sacrificing herself to save not only her, we'll call them children, which is basically what the Sethrak are in her eyes, and Azrael itself by slaying Mithrax. She did succeed, but unfortunately, she did succumb to her wounds and died, which resulted in Vol'dun becoming what it is today, a big desert.
So her death totally affected the zone.
Yes, yeah. There's a bit of confusion because I've done a bit of research on that, and Blizzard kind of contradicts it sometimes. They say, it was the Cataclysm, it was a result of like the Sundering or something, but if I'm going off basically what the dialogue in-game implies, which was Sethras died and Vol'dun turned into sand because of her death.
Yep.
So for like the War Within, I'd say the Sethrak have a bit of a grudge to settle. I'd say, even with their lowest return, Sethras return, I should say, they probably would not want another Mithrax situation to happen, and because Sethrak can live a very long time, like their lifespan is crazy long, and I'd say for them, to join the battle would definitely be a missed opportunity if they were left out, because I think them being there would be a crucial piece, and they definitely would want to settle that score with not only the Void but Xal'atath, because the way Xal'atath is being set up right now is kind of being a big puppet master. You know, she's been around for a long time. Little key moments here and there. Definitely, yeah. I think they definitely would have a role to play to some extent.
It's interesting where this is a race that, correct me if I'm wrong, was only introduced in BFA. Is that right?
Yes.
It's not even like the Pandaren, which were mentioned in one of the
like
Warcraft
teased,
games. Yeah. where, kind of midstream. I mean, I know BFA is now a handful of years ago, but in the life of Warcraft, midstream, you introduce a wholly unique race with, in theory, and we'll get to this maybe in a moment, in theory, its own story, its own lore, its own history. And I think it's hard. I think I can appreciate something, and I have a hunch. I know what the answer is from you, but I want to ask: do you? What do you think of where Blizzard has to take an existing storyline, obviously, and then they work in something new, and then go back to smooth and adjust, like just what you mentioned a few minutes ago about, well, they said it was kind of this, but it seems like it's that. And, what's your tolerance for adjusting that story as we go, as new elements show up?
So I know, obviously, like with the contradictions thing before, which thankfully they more or less clarified in Chronicles 4, which they did confirm, yes, Sethrak's death did result in the jungle withering away. But it is interesting to me to kind of get into their head on like what their planning process was for like the zone, because the Sethrak, from what I understand, were not meant to be. They were meant to be a fully hostile race just to prop up the Volpera. Yeah. But then something changed, and they added the friendly faction during like the Vol'dun campaign, which are the devoted.
Right.
And I don't know, it's just very fascinating because like they obviously adjusted at some point to say maybe we'll drop it. Maybe instead of making this race, which we just propped up, it's wholly unique, into not just a hostile race, but maybe we can give hints, and we can make a whole side faction of the good race, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when it comes to like certain changes, I'd say it's tolerable.
Yeah, I think it's quite a challenge because you can almost see. And I would love to get the story or hear an interview or something, but you can almost see in that change, Blizzard recognizing, oh wait, we've got an interesting, race here, an interesting opportunity. Let's add that devoted faction and make them more, not 2D, not just this flat bad guy thing, and it adds a lot of depth. But the fact that was a change and that came later is pretty interesting. And I would love, and I know you would love, to think, oh yeah, well, maybe we're an expansion away from them. Like, hey, we've got a good thing on our hands. Let's do something with it. And no, it's been how many years? 6 years, 8 years.
How long ago was BFA? I have to remember.
It came out in 2018, so we're 7 years from the launch.
Yeah. So technically, as I was going to bring up the Sethrak in the delve sometime later, but I might as well bring her up now.
Yeah, that's a great connection. Go ahead.
So one of the reasons why I became very focused on the Sethrak, trying to get them included, was they added Castrik. I think I pronounced her name correctly. Yeah. I was playing more within, going through one of the delves, and Datamize before was like, oh, there's a Sethrak in the delve. I'm like, I don't believe you. There's no way they do that. So I went in myself, and what I saw was pretty interesting. Not only was it a Sethrak, it was, they gave her like not like massive dialogue, like massive implication, but just enough to get you hooked and interested. I got a dialogue. I actually got a dialogue page up here just in case. Just to skim through it. So basically, she introduces herself, and she's a member of the Dragon Scale Expedition, or the Explorers League. It's a bit of a wonky thing, but
is she
and then he asks you,
both depending on the race of the faction of the player?
no. So she says she joined the Dragon Scale, but the Delve is called, like, you're helping members of Explorers League. I think it's just a bit of muddy water, honestly.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter what faction you are.
That's fair.
So she mentions this was before the recent Exploring Azeroth book, but she mentioned that a war was settled, and she journeyed to Orgrimmar, and then later went to the Dragon Isles and joined the Dragon Scale. And the interesting thing about her is that she is the first Sethrak to be seen as a mage, because a lot of the Sethrak you encounter in Vol'dun are mainly like lightning users, warriors, hunters, that kind of thing. So to see her actually being a mage was actually pretty impressive. Correct term is illusionist. So, popping up like images of yourself.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of like the spark, and like, oh, maybe they didn't forget about Sethrak. And then obviously later, as the patches go on, I haven't seen another Sethrak yet, which is a bit saddening.
Well, and those types of things, these things don't happen by accident. Like, someone's making this game and deciding and making a model and adding, like you said, adding those dialogue lines and how is that not a hint that, oh, well, when Sethrak come, they're, one of their roles could be mages. Yep, all right. Perfectly.
Because it definitely gets me thinking, like, all right, because obviously this wasn't some accident that someone left in, like, the Delve challenge, right? Someone designed this, someone made her dialogue. They obviously got the thumbs up for it.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, I don't think they were expecting the kind of excitement to see a Sethrak again. Especially from me. As you know, I'm pretty vocal about the Sethrak at this point.
You are. You've got YouTube channel, the Snakes of Vol'dun, and everyone should go check out your few videos, because you've done a great job of just kind of laying out on both sides of things, of taking what's in the game and walking through it. Is a great, if I appreciated this video after we first kind of connected. I watched this, and you've got one video that is essentially just a mashup of all of the Sethrak storyline, quest lines, all put together, and that was a great walkthrough of getting all the game crap out of the way and all the clicking, and I can just listen to the story, and I thought, this is fantastic.
I definitely made it important to show the quest dialogue, because a lot of people tend to miss out on that, and like, quest dialogue for me is very important to see, and it's really interesting to get into the writers of the, like, zone and what they were thinking. So I'm really glad I added that. And obviously at the end, I was like, with all this said, there's still potential for them. Yep. They just need to capitalize on it.
Yeah, so you've done a good job of putting the game assets together, but then on the other side, you've done a really good job of making that case for them as well, and saying, hey, here's some things that could happen, here's some good signs that maybe there's some movement, we hope.
I definitely, it feels great to, like, I read a lot of, like, replies and, like, my posts, and it's generally heartwarming to see that I'm not the only one out there. Right. There's a lot of people who really want the Sethrak, and I think I discussed this with a friend before. The thing with allied races, or Sethrak in general, was that some other allied races, like ogres, right? Ogres have been requested for years, but with the Sethrak, I think it's just we have more. How do I say this? It's more like we have more of a platform where you'll get the usual comment from, like, "Can we get ogres, please?" Right. But there's not much of a a push for them, if that makes sense, as opposed to what I'm trying to do with Sethrak.
Yeah, well, it's almost like, oh, ogres would be really neat.
And that's kind of the whole contribution. Like, there's not much else. Yeah, and there's not like, there's only, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong. There's no ogre like Discord for them, as far as I'm aware. I only know
there is for Sethrak, right?
Yeah.
You have friends.
As far as I'm aware, there is one for. It's pretty small. There's one for Arakoa. There was one for High Elves, which we eventually did get. There was one for Vopera, which they did get playable. There's probably others out there, but as for like the Sethrak Discord, it's pretty big. I don't know the total number, but we're getting new members every now and then because I do post frequently, like, hey, you want to support the Sethrak? Come on in, chill. Pretty much. It feels great. I'm very happy where we are. At the end of the day, it's really in Blizzard's hand. We can only yap so much.
So, like we said, it has been since BFA that the Sethrak have been around, and they haven't really been. They haven't been seen in game since, other than what you just mentioned in the Delve, and that's a lot of years. And I'm wondering, inside of that kind of pro Sethrak community, in the Discord or whatever, are people kind of making their own RP? Are they making their own lore and trying to build some of the culture out where Blizzard hasn't really offered a lot of backstory?
Oh, absolutely. Like my example, I play Sethrak named Bathus. I pretty much stick to what lore has been established. There's a few minor tweaks, like because there's a massive gap between where the war with the Faceless, that's the bad Sethrak, by the way, started, and where we got to BFA. Like, there's a many thousand-year gap to work off with.
Wow.
There are other, pretty long.
Yeah.
There's my friend Solvik. He plays a Sethrak mage, illusionist, which is quite a coincidence considering Castric. I was very happy to see that. But yeah, a lot of people tend to, when making Sethrak characters, they can get creative. Like, you don't have to necessarily stick to complete lore exactly, but
Sure.
in terms of like culture for Sethrak, there's not a lot there. I mean, we've got like little snippets, but generally people will try to fill in the gaps when it comes to like creating RP guilds for them. But yeah, generally, they can just, it's very creative on their end.
Have some people just gone kind of way off the rails?
Not that I've seen. No, it's not like completely bonkers. But at the end of the day, if it's a idea they have, they can definitely run with it. Like for me, my Sethrak is a druid. Which you wouldn't think from a Sethrak, but it's really fun to explore that potential. Yeah,
that's gonna mean I need more druids, because I have to have a druid of every kind, and
I love druids.
I'm running out of character slots here. I need some help, Blizzard. Come on.
In terms
we want Sethrak now, and we want Sethrak druids, and we want more character slots. Thank you.
I was going to bring up the classes. So I think, for like Sethrak classes would just be like your standard warrior, priest, rogue. I can see a lot of people have already said if they get Sethrak, they're going to roll a rogue. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's see. There's mage, shaman. I think shaman would be pretty fitting for them.
That makes sense. With all the lightning and the elements of the temple and a lot going on there. Yeah.
They do love lightning.
Stormforged Sethralus.
That'd be lovely.
Right?
Let's see. Paladin, see, the thing with paladins is it always comes down to lore when it paladins. I don't see them being paladins.
Yeah, where would
maybe.
they have exposure to? Obviously, everyone can get to the light, but where would they have gotten the training?
The faith.
Yeah, to use the faith. Where have they learned that version?
Because in Zandalari, like for Zandalari priests and paladins, they draw from like they drew their power from Razan, the Lower of Kings. But then he obviously died, and they instead draw their power from Torkola. Sorry if I mispronounced that. So theirs isn't really the light per se. It's the same as like the culture for Tauren. They draw from the sun instead of the light as the humans or dwarves would do. For Sethrak, they're very lightning orientated. So if you were to do a Sethrak paladin, I'll put in quotations, their powers would probably be more like color, like blue orientated, like a class skin. So you're still a paladin, just your abilities just be very different in color. But I don't see them being paladins, if I'm truly honest. Priests you can probably get away with, because priests light and shadow. Let's see, did I miss any classes? Death Knights. Death Knights. See that's
canonically, right? They don't run into. Oh well, do they? I know Blizzard seems to have this cutoff, and now I'm forgetting exactly when. But I guess it's Shadowlands, right?
Yeah. So the reason you can be Death Knights, like the allied races Death Knights, is because canonically the Lich King was like, all right, go grab these bodies. I'm going to turn them into Death Knights. The only possible way you could get a Sethrak Death Knight is you can easily just explain it away, being like, yeah, Bolvar picked up some Sethrak corpses as well, just to turn the Death Knights, and you can run it from there. But if you're going to go off current timeline, Death Knight Sethrak don't seem possible. Maybe you can, but they can make it. I'm certain they can make up a reason for it. But I think Death Knight's off the card. Yes, Warlocks, definitely Warlocks. I think everyone can be Warlocks at this point.
How about monks? Sethrak
monks?
Fist.
Yes. Yeah, because given their animations, they definitely have that very agile appearance to them. Like a Sethrak monk, that'd be fun.
I can almost imagine like a cloud serpent, like moving around, that sort of thing.
Literally. I can see them doing the rolling animation for monks as well. That'd be funny to see, like a rolling snake across the map.
That would be amazing. Okay, I need one of those too. Crap. Okay.
Got me excited now.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I kind of thought, no, that can't work.
I can't miss out hunters. I feel bad. I always miss out hunters.
Yeah.
I rolled a hunter. How can I miss out hunters?
Now could Sethrak have for hunter pets little humans? Maybe.
So for because in lore, Sethrak use these creatures called Krolosks. They're like bugs, insectoid creatures. They're pretty good at tunneling.
Super armored, right?
Like yeah, super armored. Like literally full-on plated creatures.
Yeah.
They use them for like mounts, decoration for like the tents and as companions. So that would definitely be a hunter pet for them, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
It just seems fitting to.
It's all right here, right? It's all.
Yeah, you pretty much got everything ready for them. Yeah, like even allied races, they kind of start off in their own little capitals, like Nightborn with Suramar, that kind of situation. With the Sethrak, they pretty much got everything. Like they've got the whole temple. You got everything you need to make them playable. You don't really need to make any assets per se. It's all there.
And you've got the story. When things like this roll out, there needs to be some lore, and you would have almost the next stage of the story that they were trying to tell in BFA of the outcome between the devoted and the faithless and whatever the next thing might be, and then how they get to joining the rest of the races of Azeroth. And so it's all, I mean, it feels like it's all right there without, like, probably
just waiting.
Yeah, just waiting in a way that I think the others that are mentioned, like the orcs. The orcs are already in the name, right? Ogres and some of those others, that even the Jinyu, like those things aren't quite ready to go as much as it feels like the Sethrak are.
Because the thing is, with ogres, Jinyu and Hosen, they've already been established to be part of like their respective factions, but the problem with it is they don't really have a capital per se. They don't have things that you would expect from like an allied race ready to go. Because like say, like with the Nightborn, you had Legion, you have the whole city.
Yep.
You know, that's boom, ready to go. So in terms of readiness, I'd say all the Sethrak really need is just the complete animation set. Obviously with customizations. And they're pretty much good to go. That's all you need, really.
Well, I think we should have it. What do you think? Somewhere somebody is working on this and we're going to see within a year, like within a year and a half.
I honestly, I'd like to imagine somewhere at Blizzard, and I've heard murmurs here and there. You know, people at Blizzard they actually do like the Sethrak.
Yeah.
It's just I just think it's just a matter of timing, what they need for it. I'd like to imagine there's a secret group of them just already working on the Sethrak, but I don't know. Maybe they could surprise if they came out next. I think they're doing a BlizzCon this year. But if they came out and be like, "Hey, look, Sethrak," I'd be like, "Whoa, cool."
So I know they're doing this little tour that just got announced, the 30th anniversary tour, where they're going to go to a few cities here and there, and one of them is near me, and now I have to decide if I can go or not. But that doesn't necessarily feel like it's where announcements are going to come. So I'm curious where we're going to hear what's next, when we're going to hear the launch of Midnight. And all of that. You're right. It won't be a BlizzCon, but what will it be? And
I think I can't remember. I think they did mention they do a BlizzCon this year, but if I were to hazard a guess, they'll probably do like an announcement at like like Gamescom or something. But if they, obviously with expansions, they want people in their seats to see the expansion. But yeah, definitely a BlizzCon. I'd say they've got that coming up. As for the world tour, unfortunately, Sydney is way too far away from me.
Hey, we're coming to your continent. Come on, what do you want? How far is it from where you are to Sydney?
Let's see, because I just funny enough, I did like a Google Maps. Like, I'm just curious, how far is it to Sydney? So it would take me roughly a day and 16 hours.
For driving? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just purely for driving.
Wow.
If only I had a teleporter, that'd be nice. Teleport right in.
Yeah, right? And now that Dalaran has crashed, sorry, spoilers for anyone, Dalaran has crashed. They're not making new portals across the continents anymore.
No. They had a real blast at the party, though.
I'm curious, turning in a slightly different direction. I know you are relatively young, and that has me curious because I think a lot of people are content with the idea that WoW is an old people game because it itself has been out 20 years. And I think that the common wisdom is there are a lot of World of Warcraft fans, and a lot of them are playing, whether it's, retail or even now the 83 flavors of Classic, but it's not necessarily pulling in new young fans. And I think it needs to. I think we all agree it needs to. but you're relatively young and you're playing WoW. How did that happen?
Yeah.
How long have you been playing?
So I started roughly back during like Wrath. My older brothers who don't play WoW anymore, they got me interested because purely like the Death Knights. I started from Wrath, and I think I played through Cataclysm a little bit. I played through Mr. Pandaria, and that's where I started playing Warlords of Draenor as well. But then at that point, I'm not sure if you heard much about Warlords of Draenor, but the content there was a bit rough. Yeah. So I kind of jumped off the ship there for a little bit. Yep. Came back for Legion. Mm-hmm. Legion was pretty good in my opinion, but I didn't play much of it. Then again, I jumped off. Yep. Came back for Battle for Azeroth for a little bit, and then once Shadowlands came, I was like, I'm not sure about this one. Then I started hearing all of the bad writing. I'm like, I think I'm good. I'm not going to come back for a while. Yeah. Writing went downhill in that one. The writing for Shadowlands was a piece of work.
Have you come back and played some of it since you've kind of been back in the game?
Oh yeah, so I got my sub back for The War Within because obviously Chris Metzen, he's a good motivator. He knows how to get people hooked, right? Yeah, especially with his whole like plan. Because I adore Chris Metzen. He's definitely he knows what he's doing in terms of like fun storytelling. In my opinion. Because obviously, he played. Pretty sure he played Dungeons and Dragons, so he's kind of familiar with that kind of immersive world building attributes that not a lot of form writers probably even cared about.
Well, I gotta say, and I don't know any details about the life of Chris Metzen, but you got to think that someone who was with the company long enough, made plenty of money, was able to step away. Again, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he's not back at Blizzard because the money ran out. I think he came back.
He did say himself,
for the love.
Just because of the love of the game.
Yeah, and there's something to that. And frankly, it's one of the reasons that I stayed with the game and moved forward even with this show was kind of his vote of confidence and almost a way of him saying, I know all that stuff went on, and I know even that I was here for some of it, but him coming back felt like a vote of confidence in not only in the story but in the company as well, and saying, I believe they're getting past that. I could be wrong and take it that way, but that's what it feels like.
There's only so much Chris Metzen can do. Sure. Like, as much as we'd like to think he has complete control over everything in the company, obviously that's impossible. He's just the director of Warcraft, but I think him being back is just maybe like a little glimmer of hope that maybe Warcraft can get itself back onto its feet. I mean, at the end of the day, he's the storyteller. The crux of the game is like the design, the gameplay, and if the gameplay's shit, then the only thing keeping it going is the lore, and if the lore can't hold its feet, then what do you have left?
Right. Yeah. You were relatively young when you started playing. What kind of turned you on to it? You mentioned older brothers. Did they kind of just pull you in?
Yeah. So I remember vivid memories, but my brothers were playing during Wrath of the Lich King era, and I'm very much a computer nerd back then as well. So I was like, oh, what are you guys playing? And he's like, oh, just playing WoW. And I got hooked onto it immediately because their Death Knights had like pretty good like sets at the time. Yep. So I was like, oh, I want that. And so I got a little subscription and I started playing. I was not the best at it, I will admit, but I'd say I've grown a little bit better at it. Yeah. God, I can't can't remember. I was like, oh god, it just feels like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Especially when you're turning 25 this year. God, it feels like a long time ago.
Time is funny. There's no doubt about that.
Time flies.
What do you like to get up to in the game? Are you doing raids and dungeons and group stuff, or what pulls you in? What keeps you there?
So I'm not much of a raider, to be honest. I think, just my opinion, raids for me is just a bit of just too much hassle.
Yep.
I mainly stick to like just questing, keeping up like the normal content. Or sometimes I'll do like little transmog runs and just mount collections.
Yep.
I'm currently trying to get this one achievement. It's way back in Battle for Azeroth. But the world quest has yet to pop up, and it's getting me frustrated. It's because it's all like randomized, and it's this one world quest I want to do so I can get the achievement, but it's like it won't pop up. Please, I'm begging you.
It waits till you go to work, and then it's up for hours.
Oh yeah, and then I come home like, oh, it's gone.
Oh, I just missed. Oh. Come on,
I'll get lucky.
Help him out. So you sound like a bit of a solo player.
Yeah, like I mean, it's funny considering like I'm mostly in a Discord with so many people.
Yeah.
I haven't had that much of a social structure in life. I've pretty much just been like a solo person. I'm not one for crowds. Like, especially when you go to the shops, you know, you're in that big mall, so many people. That's a bit like anxiety inducing.
Yep. I hate Christmas shopping. That's why.
Exactly. Oh, Christmas shopping. Whoa.
Yep.
Yeah, that was not a good time. So yeah, I'm pretty much a solo player, but you know, you do have the odd friends here and there. You know, you like to hang out with them.
Yep.
Joke around. Yeah, but I'm not much like a big group person. Yeah, I don't mind just being solo. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, the game clearly is not designed to cater to that experience, at least not completely. But you know, I really feel like, and I'm curious what you think, having even a longer experience in the game, but it feels like they are making it more accessible. What do you think about that?
I'd definitely say they would. So especially with like the war bands, just making everything easy, more accessible for like your main character. So instead of what they used to do, it's like, oh, if you want something from your alt, you got to go through this complicated process. Yeah. Whereas nowadays everything's in your warband bank. It's easily all there. The content they have is mainly like delves. You can party with a group or do it yourself. And I think they introduced the new dungeon helpers. Yeah.
Yep.
I've only tested it out a few times. It's fine. Because you know, it depends on the dungeon, the group you work with. At the end of the day, you can have a good group. You can have a group and the leader's an arsehole.
Right.
Yeah, very randomized. But
yeah, those follower dungeons make that, just take that whole element out. And, you know, I'm curious in, you know, the next year, the next expansion, the next whatever development cycle, if they're going to, I know a lot of people have asked, hey, can we have more levels of difficulty for the follower raid? That's just on my mind. Follower dungeons, it's great that we can get in and do that low level version. How about upping that version? And I have a hunch that they're going to do that. And I know there's probably a lot of logistics and rewards and all of those things to figure out, but it does feel like a lot of people play this game not necessarily grouped up, at least not permanently grouped, because life is busy and some of us are actually old, unlike some of you. But having a schedule that, you know, life is busy, and you know, for me, as much as I don't love grouping up and I don't love some of that stuff, really the biggest part is there's no way I could commit to Yep, every Tuesday and Thursday, 3 hours of my night are yours, and my world is too chaotic. I would rarely be there, so I don't want to commit to anything. And I do think they're gonna give in to some of that and make more and more opportunities. I'm hoping. I feel like that's what's coming in these next few years. Maybe we'll see.
At the end of the day, obviously, you know, when you're working, you come home. You don't want to sit down and go, all right, let's do more work by playing well. You know, you want to just relax, you know, like you got all these options you can do with the game. You don't have to be like, all right, now I'm going to spend 3 hours reading a rating list and getting screamed at if I don't press this one button, if I forget this one button, you know, you don't want that. It's kind of an escape from reality, that kind of thing you want to jump into.
I guess that's for me, that's kind of the beauty of this game, in that, especially in the direction it's moving, that people who want that, it's there. You can have your 25-man, 30-man, 30-person team, and you do you. If that's peaceful, great. I'm not here to criticize that. But man, that the idea of oh wow, our mythic trying to take down this thing has become such a work. I'm like, that does sound like a job. Nope. But the game is now saying, and if you want to be casual and if you want to do it this way, there is a lot to offer you. And I think they're moving in a good direction, and I think that's probably the success. That's the path to success for Warcraft going forward. Is it has to be a big tent. It can't be, you're either doing 40-man raids or nothing. There has to be all of these options, because the game has all of these options. It has tons of lore. It has solo play. It has group content. It has different flavors of all this stuff. It has old raids and content. It has old achievements, it has old world quests that never show up. So there's all of the avenues. I think, as much as they can embrace all of that and keep all those plates spinning, that's going to pull in the most amount of people, I suppose. And frankly, you're adding a Plunderstorm thing that feels a little Fortnite-y. And so maybe if you do it right, you pull in some of them young kids that play in the Fortnite. Do you play Fortnite?
No, I've actually never touched Fortnite, thankfully. I wasn't part of that craze. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it was just me. Yeah. But when I saw it, I'm like, this doesn't interest me. And all that buzz around when it was coming out. Yeah. I was like, this does not interest me at all. Yeah.
Did you play Thunderstorm? Plunderstorm? Did you get in and enjoy that at all?
So I didn't actually join Plunderstorm, but my friend, I call him Tezu. He's a big Mythic Plus player. Yep. But I think he did Plunderstorm, and it was pretty a fun experience from what he was telling me. I might get into it. I think it hasn't come out for me today because time zones is amazing. Sure. But I'll definitely consider giving it a shot. See what happens.
Is today the day that it starts?
I think it's today. I'm pretty sure, because I did hear some chatter before. Maybe I haven't exactly checked it.
It's funny. I've been kind of busy, but I think you might be right. I think when your today becomes our today.
Yeah.
I think
I'm from the future.
Right. 14th.
God, it feels weird when everyone says. Especially because half my friends are like over where you are. It's like, I'll see you Tuesday, and I'm like, no, I'll see you. For me, I'll be like, nah, I'll see you guys Wednesday morning. Yeah.
I'm not finding the day. Let's see. Early 2024.
It should be the 14th, right?
I think you're right. Oh yeah, January 14th. Well, okay.
There you go.
So as we record this. It's the 14th in your world, but you live in the future. Where do I get up on time tomorrow? Am I late for work? It's the 13th here, so yeah, Plunderstorm should be coming to an Arathi Island
So I think,
very soon.
but if I were to hazard a guess, for me, it would probably start around the 15th, say maybe 2 a.m.
Okay.
Whereas everyone else is still on the 14th.
When is reset for you?
Reset. So reset. Reset. So normally resets on like a Wednesday morning.
Okay.
So they go through the reset around. Let me bring it up. I think it tells me here, unless it's already gone through. Let me bring it up. 1 second. It says January, so it comes off around 1 p.m. So the January 14th. So it starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 1 p.m.
So you've already had it?
I think I've already had it. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, as I said, time zones is very
coming
weird.
up on
It's
11.
very strange.
It's coming up on 11 a.m. your time.
Yeah, but I was playing like a couple minutes ago, so maybe it's tomorrow, if that makes sense. As I said,
the
time zone's
15th?
confusing. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's all when you're living in Australia and all your friends are like in the literal past behind you, it gets very confusing sometimes.
I literally have never spoken to someone so far physically away from me in my life.
That's Australia for you.
Fascinating. That's fascinating. Speaking of Australia, I know just from hearing other podcasts and hearing people over the years, Australia has a pretty intense World of Warcraft scene, and there's a pretty loyal following. I know, actually, I've got a fair amount of followers and downloads from Australia. So tell me, is it a thing? Is there a scene there? Do you feel it?
I haven't really been like looking around as much, but I'd say there is a fair few like Australians, obviously, out there. There probably is a scene going on, but like a proper what's the word I'm looking for? Like gaming competition, tournament kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not that because I'm not one for tournaments anyway, so I don't really keep up to date with that. But I'd say definitely there's some folks around.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, in Blizzard's 6-city tour, they are coming to Sydney, and I think that's a
how nice of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, they certainly could troop around a few places, but that's clearly a sign that Australia is important to them. To I forget where it starts. Is it Sydney first? I
think they're only coming to Sydney. Yeah.
Yep.
That Sydney's like the big place you want to go to.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else you want to throw out there? On anything, really? Yeah.
Well, actually, there was one thing I forgot to mention. This was part of my Sethrak thing, so I'll just wind my way back to that, if you don't mind. I think I mentioned before the whole cash trick thing that got me excited.
Yeah.
After that, they did bring out the book exploring Azeroth. It's called Isles and Islands. They basically go through different zones like the Broken Isles from Legion and Zandalar. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that for me, it tells me something. Either Blizzard knows how popular the Sethrak are, maybe. I can't read their minds.
Yeah, sure.
But it's interesting because a long time, like long after BFA, I've always asked the question, like, can we get an update on the Sethrak? Like, what's going on there? It's been years. The thing with them is that during their campaign, it kind of ended abruptly. Like, there was no conclusion, right? Yeah. It just kind of stopped. Like, you put it on pause, right? Yeah. There was nothing else to work with. And I'm glad we finally got some kind of answer in the book. The basic TLDR is that the Sethrak, the devoted have regained control of their temple. Things are pretty looking up there. Mm-hmm. the war between like the faithless and devoted has been over for years. There's a sense of like mourning and exhaustion. You know, I'd imagine they definitely feel exhausted if you've been fighting a civil war for God knows how long,
Sure.
thousands of years. And again, it's not like a massive amount of detail, but it's just enough to get you hooked a little bit and make you wonder, okay, are they setting up for something here? Because they mention that they've been like mending their relationships with Vorpera, because obviously the Vorpera were victims of the Faithless. They had a very rough experience with them. And there's some former Faithless and Devoted from the war. They've gone to Akunda, who's basically, you go to him if you want to forget things.
Yep.
And a lot of the Sethrak in that have chosen to go into him to forget like the war, which is very interesting.
They live a long time. When your video even mentioned there's not really an in-game occurrence of anybody just dying of old age.
Not that we've seen. A lot of the Sethrak death is pretty much normal, like from fighting.
Sure.
I haven't actually, because Vorik, he's one of Sethlis's most devoted follower, right?
Yep.
And as I said, the dialogue implies, basically he said he's been there when she died. He's pretty much 16,000 years old, and by the time of BFA, he's not slowing down at all. It's very impressive. If anything, he's still kicking ass.
Yeah. And unlike some of us, he stuck around through the content drought of Warlords. So, you know, there's that.
and a lot of people, and for me, I like to think deeply about a character for Vorik, especially if you're in his shoes, you've been fighting your own kin for a long time. Your lower hasn't come back yet, right? And it's just very impressive to see his determination, his will hasn't been broken. Because being that old and seeing so much, I can't imagine how much he's seen, like how much death, betrayal.
Sure.
That would break a normal person. And like when you help Sethlis come back, I can only imagine it must have felt like a massive weight off his shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, there's a story to be told there. There's a character that seems, like you said, there has to be a lot of depth to that. And again, it feels like, you know, that all of that is right there ready for them to utilize, you know. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, okay, now not only do I see the capital city and the allied race and the starting zone and, all this, I see, we talked about the connection to Xal'atath and that they could be a part, if ever there was all races on deck to save Azeroth, it's now. And you can also see, hey, put the novel out that gives the backstory to generate excitement and then move forward with this. Like it's all sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. There's one thing that a lot of people like to debate about, especially when it comes to new races, and how Blizzard have been doing them so far. It's Order Alliance for Sethrak. Now, it's a bit of a prickly thorn, this one, but if I truly had to pick a faction, I'd go the Pandaren route. So you can either go Alliance or Horde, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much what they do with the Earthen, right?
Yep.
But see, the thing is, this is what Blizzard have done, is that they've already set the groundwork for Sethrak being Horde because Zandalari, they're part of the Horde, right? And Zandalar is Horde territory.
Sure.
And the dialogue that Kastrik mentions, she specifically notes the Horde being the one to liberate them. And even from Chronicles 4, they make it a point. It was the Horde, right? But if truly, I think it would probably be a lot easier if they were just neutral. So, as again, like you can either go Alliance or Horde. It's up to you. It's purely just for maybe preference, gameplay reasons. Like, with the Earthen, there wasn't really a lot of reasoning to have them like split from what I've seen. But it's probably maybe just like culture preference. Like maybe some Earthen prefer the Horde because of this and this and this. Same with the Alliance, because obviously Alliance has dwarves. There's a connection there. It's not just like, oh yeah, so the Sethrak join this faction because they do it because they want to explore the culture or something like that. You can easily work it in without having to be like a faction war thing, because I think from what I've been reading, they probably don't want to do another faction war story again. I think that's been done to death. But yeah, purely just for gameplay reasons, I'd say just make an option for them to go either side.
It feels like they're moving in that direction for sure. I mean, the recent allied races that, I mean, kind of going all the way back to Legion, you have Void Elves, which were giving the allied, the Alliance a Blood Elf, and you have the
pretty much
the Nightborn. Yeah, like, so first you started by kind of swapping, and then building off of the Pandaren, you have the Earthen. And it seems like, everyone's going to get their half
slice of the
and
pie.
keep things
That's a good
balanced.
way to put it.
Yeah, and I think from a gameplay point of view, maybe less from a story, but it's more, what's the word? It's just more open to how you want to play the game. It's more options. If you come in, you're like, oh, all my buddies are on the Horde, but I want to play this, Alliance only character. Well, that I think they're taking those limitations off as best they can, as much as the story is going to allow. So I totally buy what you're saying, that, because there's no obvious, it can only be the Horde. I know it definitely leans towards the Horde based on the story, but that doesn't limit them from... Remind me, because I don't quite remember. I know the Alliance, of course, land in Vol'dun as part of the the war campaign, and they clear out a thing and operate in there. How much connection do they have to the Sethrak story?
So I've actually went ahead and made an Alliance character just to test, just see how much they've interact with the Sethrak. From what I've gathered is that they pretty much land, because it's part of the war campaign, they land in Vol'dun, they fight some of the Faithless, and they meet Warwick, who for some reason was going out for a stroll and got himself poisoned. So random.
That's what every 16,000-year-old leader of faction does at some point.
Yeah, massive.
Sometimes the elderly wander. That happens.
Pretty much. They pretty much save Warwick from this poison, and he helps the Alliance free one of their scouts, right? Or privates. And then Warwick obviously goes through the same process of telling them about Mithrax, yada yada. But the Alliance don't really help in Vol'dun, if that makes sense. It's kind of just, here's what the Sethrak are doing. Off we go to fight the Horde. So it's not much.
Well, and I think actually that's one of the strengths of BFA in a way, in that each faction had their starting island, continent, whatever. They had their 3 zones. That you do the heavy questing in those zones, the story questing in those zones, and then you go to the opposite island and you do the lighter war campaign version, what your side is doing in that zone. So I kind of like that the Alliance don't have the same participation. It's not yes, we both are going to walk through this story, we'll slightly tweak it for your experience and your experience. I kind of like that they didn't do the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely gives you like a bit of a different perspective, especially because obviously they could have just been like, oh, so the Alliance will just play through the whole Vol'dun campaign, but slightly tweaked.
Right.
But obviously they reserved all that for Kultiris. That's an Alliance zone.
Right.
Same thing with like the Horde. You don't spend that long in Kultiris when doing the Horde campaign.
Mm-hmm. Doing the Drust and all of that stuff. Yeah. And since then, we haven't actually, Blizzard has been very equal. Shadowlands, for good or for bad, but everybody kind of did the same thing. Depending on which zone, you wanted to sort of represent, but still ultimately the factions weren't the deciding part of that. And then Dragonflight, same thing. It's everybody's in each zone. And now in the War Within, same thing. So we have the factions kind of doing the same thing, kind of hand in hand. I think it's interesting to have that mixed gameplay, and I wonder. I'm sure we'll go back to it. I don't know if it has to be an all-out war. Maybe it will. But it feels like it's going to be a while, right? It feels like the intention's not
do something like that again.
Yeah.
Because if the way the current projection is for like the World Sword Saga is that it's definitely everyone's gonna experience the same thing, where it's not like a separate thing if you're like Alliance or Horde. Because obviously you want to keep a consistent story, especially if you're telling this kind of story, the Void, that kind of thing.
The story is bigger than the Alliance.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I appreciate. But I think BFA kind of gets overlooked a little bit for its ability to tell different stories in different places. And, as someone who plays both sides and just likes playing the game and playing the stories, that was appreciated then. And it makes me kind of miss that a little bit.
BFA definitely had its flaws, I was not a fan of the whole... Sylvanas isn't Garrosh, we promise, but where does Gary? That was a bit silly. It's funny. For all of it good, I think it obviously is very. The bad seems to overwhelm it with a lot of people. Kind of similar to Warlords, where there was good in Warlords, just overshadowed.
But it's
bad,
definitely overshadowed. Yeah.
I wish I could say there was a little good with Shadowlands, but I was not. Shadowlands was kind of just a little. Everyone just picks up and just puts it in the corner. I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah. I think I actually have the benefit of, because I don't raid and because there were no follower dungeons then. The whole jailer story didn't affect me in the way that other people did. And I know it's still there. It's not that it doesn't exist, but, and I certainly saw the,
his master plan.
And that's all tiring. I liked the zones. I liked the music. I liked the gameplay. I liked the small stories, I guess, I liked exploring a different...
There's definitely good chunks, just overshadowed by so much muck.
Yep. Yeah, and so it's unfortunate. I'm looking forward to the point, and actually it will be probably this year, jumping in and trying to do some of those dungeons and some of those raids solo that have not really been accessible, I guess, until the War Within. I think solo characters will have the power to go in and do that. So I'm looking forward to that in a way. But in a way, I guess,
kind of like, you're like, all right, well, let's see what all the fuss is about, and you're going to experience, be like, I understand now. It's
I guess I'm going to just get right on board with everybody once I'm done. Like, oh yeah, that sucked. That was terrible. You're all right. Yeah, I got it. Hey, before we get out of here, I know Blizzard, famously has now mapped out what's coming for us, and we've got more visibility into the future of the story than we've ever had. But any thoughts on where things go after? It seems clear that we eventually, hopefully, will triumph. I don't think they'll just shut the game down. Nope. You guys lost this war.
Game over.
Yeah, and we're announcing Warcraft 2 coming out soon. What do you think they might go after this big story is over?
Because I've seen interviews with Metzen. He's talked about like he's already planning way ahead, right? Like he's probably cooking up. Yeah. So you've got War Within, Midnight, and The Last Titan. Like that's what we know, right?
Yep.
But he's already got plans for like the next thing, and it could go anywhere. I suspect, because obviously Midnight is where we deal with the Void, probably where Xal'atath dies. Anything's possible. The Last Titan, obviously, we're gonna have to contend with the Titans being a bunch of sneaky bastards. But after that, it could go anywhere. But if there's one thing I know for certain is that Metzen really wants to go back to the old world, right? Because the War Within is basically a new traditional, like new island, new zone. You kind of get used to it for an expansion, then you don't go back to it, right? Whereas Midnight, you're going back to Quell for Last. You're going back to you're going back to like the Burning Crusade zone, right? And it's getting uplifted. Yeah. And it's the same with the Last Titan. Like they're gonna update Northern End. I'm not sure how or why they're gonna do it. I think that's the general goal, because a lot of the zones are stuck in Cataclysm storytelling, so it gets a bit jarring. But I suspect for future,
it's been a while now, right?
It's been a while, but I suspect their plan is, like even back during BFA, they've updated zones like little bits here and there, right? Like little chunks. So I suspect after the Last Titan, they could go anywhere. Like let's say we're going to revamp Kalimdor, right? We're going to tell a whole new story, and it could be adventurous, it could be anything, it could be dealing with like old world, like normal threats again, like like classic era kind of thing. You got your bandits, your dragons, that kind of thing. But again, it could just go anywhere. Like we could go I don't think we're going to leave Azeroth, because again, there's the whole other side of Azeroth we're still waiting to see.
There is that.
And then, but then at the heart of it, the old zones like Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdom, that's nostalgic, and I think they're going to go back and update them and tell whole new stories and maybe get us out of that Cataclysm era that we've been stuck in for a while.
Yeah. It's interesting. Two things occur to me as you're describing that. One, I've heard it said many times by many people that ultimately Azeroth, the planet, the zones, that really is the main character of the story. That is the thing that ties this world together. And you've got all of this great world already in existence.
Just expand on it,
And and so we go other places, except you're right. I was kind of, after the anniversary event, I took some characters out of Daenerys and off to do some various chores, and you fly through Kalimdor, and I noticed, if I go through Xal'atath, my level 70 something character is still getting XP from discovering zones in Xal'atath and Uldum, but if I go into Thousand Needles or the Barrens or a bunch of places, well, you get the 50 experience.
You definitely need that 50 XP.
But then you get to another zone, you get to Darkshore, and it jumps back up because Darkshore was revamped in Legion. And, so you've got this hodgepodge of places that they've been brought forward in the story, and you can go, click on the dragon and switch back to the old timeline. But the other thing that occurs to me that while you were talking was that those zones are fantastic, and in some ways you don't want to lose them, which is why they have the dragon to take me back to the old timeline. But now we have so many versions of classic out there. I wonder if that's almost permission for Blizzard to say, let's bring all the zones. Maybe not in one expansion, maybe in the next few years, but let's bring everybody out of that Cataclysm status. Let's bring everybody up to date, because if you miss the old Thousand Needles or whatever, you've got a version of Classic that you can still.
There's Classic Cataclysm out. I feel like that is pretty much saying like, hey, we can really update these zones now. And they definitely have, like, it's amazing, like the WoW engine. It's amazing how much it has improved over the years. Their tech has definitely improved to really make a zone just shine, and I can just picture like a revamped Stormwind Orgrimmar in that kind of tech. I think it would just be really interesting to see what they can do.
Yeah, it's fascinating because they've really they've maintained that Warcraft look that you know when you go into Dornogal, it's Warcraft. But the little details, the level of details, the things that are moving and blowing in the wind, or the things on the table, or the textures, all of that, really they keep marching better and better and better while maintaining that look. But then you go to an old zone, you're like, oh, let's go to Hillsbrad Hills, and whoa, okay, this is old.
It's very old.
It's nostalgic, but and you're right. Wow, wouldn't this look great if it got that fresh coat of paint? And it still was the same zone, still did the same thing, but it just got that update. And some people, some people would cry foul and they love the nostalgia, but Blizzard can point to
classic,
the classic, and so they have the answer for that now.
Paying a separate subscription for classic either, because your subscription covers that anyway. So it's like, oh, you want to go see let's say they update Thousand Needles, and just go to classic Cataclysm. There you go.
Yeah. Or if I don't like that version, I'll go to classic and see the original. And it is maybe one of the wonders of the world, certainly of the economic world, and all this talk of inflation and economies and stuff. We're still paying the same sub all these years later, and they've added all this. So you're right. It's not like, oh, well, if you want to see that, go pay our other sub and you can play that game. Nope, it's right there. Just download it. It's free.
Roll there, ready to go.
Yeah. Well, I think we've solved all of the world's problems.
I'd say we definitely have.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a fantastic conversation. I know originally we said, let's chat for 15 minutes or so.
Nearly 2 hours. Roughly 2 hours. Yeah,
it's been a little while. Where can people find you on the internet? Where can they follow you on the socials? How do they find your burgeoning YouTube channel?
So pretty much they're all share the same name, Snek of Vol'dun. I'm more so on Blue Sky nowadays than Twitter. My YouTube channel is not that big, but same name. You can find me there. But yeah, they all share the same name. Ironically, I remember, so I can't remember where this comment came from, but they were like, oh, this Snek of Vol'dun guy, he's the Sethrak's strongest soldier, and I had a little giggle about that. They're not wrong. I've definitely yapped. I think I've yapped way more than any other Sethrak person has.
There you go. Well, someone's going to lead the fight, right? That other guy's getting old.
Yeah, I'm like Thanos.
16,000.
I'll do it myself.
There you go. Taking on all of Blizzard, and you're going to convince them.
Peacefully. Yeah. I'm not going to square up with them.
After the last Titan, the next expansion is just everybody is Sethrak. It doesn't matter what
that'd
you
be funny.
play.
Imagine that after the last Titan, everyone was a Sethrak.
That's the Thanos.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here. It's been an experience. I've had fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. It's been great to have you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome.
Well, there you have it. My conversation with the Snek of Vol'dun, the pride of Western Australia, fighting for the promotion of the Sethrak race. It will be interesting to see if Blizzard has this in their plans. I know he had a lot of great ideas about getting them involved in the story, and I wonder, setting aside the issue of playable race for just a moment, I wonder if they will be involved in the story. I think there's some stuff there that really does make sense. After being abandoned since BFA, kind of exciting stuff. So big thank you to Snek of Vol'dun for joining me here in Solo Queue. I enjoyed our conversation immensely, and I'm super grateful for his support of the show from all the way around the world. 13-hour time difference, but somehow in setting this up, we found we were on the exact same work and sleep schedule, so that actually made things a little easier than you might think. Yeah, and his support, I started to wonder if maybe that money was secretly sourced from the Sethrak Support Society as a targeted strategic investment in their marketing campaign to get Blizzard's attention and make the Sethrak playable. Maybe they've heard things about this podcast.
They say you have the heir of the throne?
Not sure if that's true, but we will see. Well, that's going to be a wrap for this How Do You Solo interview that kind of sprung out of nowhere. It was really exciting. I need to get back into Azeroth to plunder. Only 27,000 more gold so I can buy out the plunder store. All the sound and music in the show is the work of the amazing people at Blizzard. Heavy on the music from the Vol'dun zone this episode. Great vibe. Hashtag don't play muted. Come on. The intro and the outro music are by my real friends in the doom metal band Ogre. I know that we were talking about snake people, snake men this episode, but I'm going to send you to search Ogre, Dogmen of the Planet Earth. My favorite song to open an Ogre live set. So Dogmen of the Planet Earth, go find it. Play it loud. I want to thank everyone who made this episode possible, my lovely and supportive wife, the good folks at Podbean who are hosting Solo Q. If you would like to support the show, even in a little tiny way, you can find the show at patreon.com/SOLOQUEUEWOW. Thank you to current patrons as we start out a full year of this Patreon support. Full year, so thank you to current patrons Andrew, who was first on board, Righteous Bandy, That Sky Guy, Sin, and 2 new members. As mentioned, Snek of Vol'dun and Friends of Wumpus. Thank you for your support. Free members include Max, Eddie, Bear. How did I miss Bear? Sorry, Bear. Big apologies. And John. And the support on Patreon really has helped me buy some new equipment in the last few weeks. And it's pushing me towards those twice monthly episodes that we're planning for. Paying members also get to hear the opening bits of most episodes early. So if you enjoy some of those opening little things, they pop out a little early. And hey, there's a growing chat on patreon.com/SoloQWow. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, of course, Apple, Spotify, lots of others. Leave a written review, a rating, a 5-star rating, a review. I will read them as I see them. It's exciting to see them. Just a reminder, you can check in with the Snek of Vol'dun on YouTube and Blue Sky and other places. He is at The Snek, SNEK of Vol'dun, VOLDUN, all one word, Snek of Vol'dun. Go check out his YouTube videos for more Sethrak information there. Well done. You can contact me, of course, at SOLOQUEWEWOW at Well, all the places. Blue Sky and Gmail are the best. Twitter, if you still need to do Twitter. Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. I post updates there as well, but check them far less often. Let me know what you were up to at the tail end of Season 1. Are you plunderstorming? Are you in one of the 8 versions of Classic? Are you somewhere else? Are you just resting? Wherever you are. We can talk about it, hopefully soon, in the January show, the next time we hop into Solo Queue. We will see you out there.
Sethrak, save us all. We will never give up.